Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's live session. I'm Sarah Archer. I'm a career and leadership coach, and thank you for joining me. It's not my usual time. I'm normally on at 12:15, but I'm doing a slightly earlier slot today because I couldn't make 12:15 today. So you're very welcome here. If you are here with me live, please do say hello, give me a little wave, or say hello in the comments. And if you haven't been to one of my lives before, let me just tell you a little bit about me very briefly. I work with female leaders to create career success on their terms without either selling out or burning out. And I do that through either working with them on their advancement strategy, so to get that next leadership role or promotion, or when they're in the role, to have the confidence, impact, and influence that enables them to be really successful. And I created the LinkedIn Live, which is called the Get Unstuck series, to give you a small window in your week, so 15 minutes every week, to think about something career related. Because having worked as an HR director, I know how busy leadership roles are and how little time at work or at home you get to think about career, where you're taking it, what you want from it, how you can get even better in your current job. And so I thought I'd just give you 15 minutes just to have some chance to think about something that might be relevant to where you are in your career. And the sessions are always practical. There's always things you can take away and implement straight away. And obviously, if you want to work with me one-to-one on a particular leadership or advancement area, then please do get in touch. You can always message me directly on LinkedIn or through my website, careertreecoaching.co.uk. So I'm guessing if you're here today with me, you are thinking about or about to move into your next leadership role, or maybe you've been in it for a short period and you're thinking about your first 90 days in the role. And it can feel really overwhelming, can't it, when you're about to start a new role and you're having to think about, okay, how am I going to get in there, show that I was the right hire, show that I can actually make a difference and have impact in this role. So what I'm going to take you through today is just thinking about, excuse me, the different types of transition you might be making, so you're prepared for that. And also the 3 transition traps or mistakes that you might fall into when you're thinking about going into your next leadership role. And then just some pointers around what you can think about to create your successful 90 days. Excuse me. My voice is already beginning to go. So thinking about the types of transition, which we don't really do we? Just like, I've got a new role, just let's get on with it. But actually recognizing that you might be going through one or probably more of these types of transition can help you then also think about what support you're going to need to make that transition successful. So obviously, it could be that you're going into a new company. You've got a new role. It's in a new company. So there's a new culture to navigate, new ways of doing things to navigate. Or it might be that you've got promotion. So you're going to the next level, the next leadership level, either internally or in a new role. So there could be a combination of those 2 transitions going on. Or it might be, if it's an internal promotion, that you are actually now leading people who used to be your peers, or you are certainly at a different level to people who used to be your peers. So that's another type of transition that you might be facing. Or it might be that you are moving to a new function. So maybe you're if you're a generalist, you're just going into a different function to deliver something different, or maybe you're changing specialism. Or it could be a geographical relocation. So maybe your new role, either internal or external, is actually in a different part of the country, and you're relocating both for work and from home, or maybe you're commuting further. That again is a different type of transition. Or maybe you're moving into a role that hasn't been there before. So it's a newly created role. Again, another type of transition. Or maybe you're going into a different business situation. So maybe you've been in quite a large organization and you're moving to more of a kind of startup that might be very focused on growth, or maybe there's a different kind of business challenge. Maybe they're in contraction and they want somebody to help them move out of that, or maybe they're wanting to transform, or maybe they're winding down, or maybe growth is taking place in a different way. Maybe it's about expansion into different regions. So it's a different kind of business setup. So it's worth just taking a few moments to think about what kind of transition or transitions will I be experiencing in my new leadership role, so that I can build in different types of support to help me navigate those transitions successfully. And even just recognizing that actually I'm facing maybe 3 or 4 different types of transition here will help you prepare well for that. And then let me talk you through some of the mistakes people can make when they're going into a new leadership role. And there's a brilliant book written by Michael D. Atkins called Your First 90 Days, where he identifies these transition traps. And I really like that phrase, transition traps. And he identified 7, but I'm only going to talk you through 3 today, but you'll probably recognize them, and just being aware of the potential traps can help you plan to make sure that you're not falling into that. So the first one is sticking with what you know. So just thinking, okay, I've had this approach in my previous jobs. I'm just going to roll that approach out into my next role. So thinking about your transitions can make you realize maybe I'm going to have to adapt my approach. Maybe I've got to think again about how I'm going to be successful in this next leadership role. So not kind of just thinking I can just roll out my same approach. Second potential transition trap is prioritizing action over learning. And Michael D. Watkins talks about the action imperative. You know, when we move into a new role, we're thinking about, I've just got to take action straight away. I've just got to get into the doing. I've got to show value. I've got to just dive into the kind of action taking straight away. And we're just going to think about pressing pause on that and thinking about more of a learning approach, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. And then the third one would be, in terms of the transition traps, is neglecting your broader network. So just in those 90 days, focusing on your immediate network and not actually putting time and effort into that kind of wider network in the business. So those are 3 of the possible traps that you could fall into. Let's now think about how you can build a 90-day successful 90-day plan. And obviously I'm not going to break it down into 30, 60, 90. There's lots of information out there about how you can do that. I just want to kind of raise your awareness of how you can be approaching that 90-day plan. And obviously, depending on the organization you're joining, they might have a really great onboarding process, but they might not. They might not have any onboarding beyond week 1. So it is about kind of giving yourself permission to be action oriented, not prioritizing action over learning, but proactive in your approach to your onboarding in terms of what you want, because you want to be going in thinking about your leadership purpose. So thinking big in terms of what you want for this role for yourself, but also what you want in terms of your leadership vision for your team, your department, and showing up as a leader, not as a manager. So almost sort of stepping back and thinking, what do I want my onboarding to be like? So it's not a passive experience. It's more active in terms of you directing, leading, even from before you've joined, your onboarding process. So I worked with a client a little while ago, and she'd been appointed as a director of operations for an organization that had a bit of an onboarding process, but it was a bit old school. It was a bit like, here's the operating manual online that you can look at before you join. And she was like, it's a national organization. I want to be going out and meeting the regional directors. I want to go and visit some of the places that we're operating from and see what's going on, but nothing's been arranged for me. So obviously we were looking at that in terms of, okay, well, what do you want to do about that? And she's like, well, I want to have those meetings in my diary in my first, at least my first 30 days. And I want to be clear about the messaging that's going out to those operating centres and regional directors, because I want them to feel that I'm, coming to grade them or whatever. I just want to go and meet them and hear what's going on for them. So she came up with a plan of who she wanted to have those meetings with and what she wanted to be communicated to those people. And she was a bit like, can I do this before I've joined? And I'm like, well, yes, of course you can. And what does it mean if you're doing it before you join? You're showing up as a proactive leader who already is interested in, moving things forward and getting to know people and showing up as somebody who is taking the control of your onboarding experience. And so that's what she did. She just got in touch with whoever it was and said, this is what I want to happen in my first 30 days. These are the people I want to meet. This is the message I want to be sent to them. Boom. And it was really well received. It was really well received. So I think it's about, thinking about what you want, what's necessary for you, and then being able to kind of move that forward and recognizing it's showing you in a really good light because you're being proactive and taking action. Which leads me into kind of the first area to think about, which is kind of having a learning plan for yourself. So remember our transition trap of prioritizing action over learning. The learning we want to think about is learning the business. So thinking about learning about the people, the projects that are going on, and the processes. So it's going into that kind of observational mindset where you are being able to kind of hover above what's going on and really understand what's working, what's not working, what could be improved, where the kind of pinch points are, where resources needed, where things are over-resourced, just almost doing a review in that first 90 days of what's happening, as if you were writing a consultant's report. And, you might, at the end of your 30, 60 or 90 days, be thinking about strategically positioning. This is what I've learned over my induction, my onboarding period. These are the actions I think we could take to make a difference. And this is what's going to be feeding into my bigger vision for my team department, or even into kind of organizational areas that need to be addressed. Because if you get pulled into the action and the doing straight away, which, let's face it, sometimes onboarding can be 90 minutes rather than 90 days. If you feel like you're being pulled into the weeds straight away, it's just having that strength to recognize, okay, I do need to be, I've got to make some decisions here, but actually I want to be reflective and really thinking about what's going on before I'm committing to lots of things. So staying in that observational learning mindset, whilst recognizing there is going to be some things that are going to have to happen. We don't have the luxury of not taking any decisions as a leader in the first 90 days, but it's still doing it with, okay, well, maybe we just need to press pause on that and giving yourself that permission. And then obviously the second thing to think about is your quick wins, because you do want to have some sort of impact in your first 90 days. You do want to show you being at your best and that you are able to have an impact fairly quickly. So it's looking for maybe one or two situations which will play to your strengths, which you feel like you want to lead or contribute to or take on straight away, and then being able to communicate that success when you've actioned it, or it's happened, to not only your boss but also your wider peer community too, so people can see that you are adding value. But again, it's doing it in a strategic way, that you're not being just pulled into all the doing straight away, that you do have to have that chance to observe and learn. And then the third thing would be to really kind of spot your supporters. So people who are going to be the influencers, the decision makers in the organization. And again, this comes from being able to observe and learn and talk to the wider stakeholders in the business, not just your team and your boss. And create those alliances that are going to be really valuable in the long term. And I did a live a few weeks ago about how to get your leadership voice heard, how to get your voice heard in the leadership space. And there was a bit in that about being tactical and creating a bank of social credit. So I think go back and watch that. It's part one, because that will give you some ideas around creating alliances, particularly if you feel that's not your strength. But it's just kind of being able to build those relationships, and that will help with, when you're in the learning plan and you're meeting people and you're listening and you're hearing from them, what's their challenges, what's going on for them. That will all feed into helping you build those alliances, but also to spot where there could be conflicts or clashes so that you can preempt them in your journey in the business. So those are my kind of 3 or 4 key things to think about when you're going into your 90 days. So, thinking about what's your leadership vision, what's your leadership purpose for your new role, prioritizing learning and listening, and almost going into kind of consultancy mode to think about what's going well, what's not going well, what are the pinch points, what could I add value to? Thinking about your quick wins, the low-hanging fruit that you can make a difference to quite quickly, and communicating that, and then thinking about identifying the people who are going to be key to your success in the business and creating and building those alliances from day one, not waiting until you're into your 100 days in the business, and also throughout your 30, 60, 90 days, building in that opportunity for reflective practice. So just noticing, what you've learned and communicating it, and just staying in that, learning and reflective mindset. So I hope that's been useful for you, thinking about your next leadership role and what you want to do to build success in it once you've nailed the job. And like I said, if you've got any kind of questions, do please message me. Or if you think having someone to want support around planning out your 90 days, then obviously do get in touch with me. And I will be back next Wednesday at the normal time of 12:15 with another leadership topic. So I look forward to seeing you then.